To kick things off, I want to share with you a bit more about my own journey, how I got here, what I've learned along the way, and what you can expect from this podcast in the coming weeks, months, and maybe even years if people find it valuable. The reason I want to do the podcast is I've heard for a long time from friends that things that I've learned from the martial arts, when I share with them advice, it's helpful to them and it's sometimes helpful in helping them achieve their goals. I have a belief that the world would be a better place if more people are just happy and are successful in achieving whatever it is they want to achieve. Sometimes people are working at cross goals, like politically or something like that. But I think overall, if people are successful in what it is they want to achieve, the world will be a better place. And so that's why I'm doing this podcast, and I hope it'll be helpful. I want to give you just a quick personal intro about my life. I've done some interesting things that have been informed by martial arts principles that I think have taught me a lot of things that I could use to help you. Forgive me for name dropping a little bit, but I think it's part of my journey, and I think you'll find it interesting. I started martial arts as a little kid back in 1968 in Los Angeles, California, studied jiu-jitsu at that time under Sensei Jack Secchi, got my black belt in jiu-jitsu, taught UCLA when I went to UCLA in 1980, headed up their jiu-jitsu club. In 1984, I met Steven Seagal before he was a famous movie star. He had just come back from Japan, Aikido instructor. I taught jiu-jitsu at his Aikido school for several years, right through when he first started doing movies. In 1990, I began training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This was several years before the UFC. I trained with Rigan Machado and his brothers Jean-Jacques, Carlos, John, and Roger Machado, and ended up getting my black belt in 1996. I was one of the first non-Brazilian black belts called the BJJ Dirty Dozen. I was actually there when that term was created. That was coined by another BJJ Dirty Dozen member, Professor John Will, who is the first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt out of Australia. In 1998, I went to the BJJ World Championship in Brazil, and I took the bronze medal in the open weight class division. I was the first American to ever win a medal at the black belt level in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championship. In 2002, John Will, who I mentioned, and I joined together to create a curriculum sold on first VHS videos, then DVDs and manuals to martial arts instructors who were really trying to bring grappling into their school. And this helped spread Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at that time. We sold it to maybe 800 schools around the world. I would travel and teach seminars at that time. We knew Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris had us create a custom version of that curriculum for his association. And in 2008, I wrote the first book on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition, which I think is still out there somewhere. And I think that was very helpful for people at that time who were competing. Since that time, over my career, I've won 10 world championships in my various age divisions. In fact, maybe by the time you are watching this, I will have won more. I still actively compete. Thank goodness I'm in really good shape. I'm 63 years old. That's where the Ageless Warrior part of this comes. And it's funny because Dan Millman, who some of you may know, who is the author of Way of the Peaceful Warrior and many other great books I recommend you read, he kind of lifted an eyebrow when I said, I was going to call this Ageless Warrior Lab because he's almost 80 years old and here I am only 63. He's a true ageless warrior. But hopefully I'll get there. It was never my intention, though, to be doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a career, and it hasn't been my main source of income in my life. I was actually playing rock and roll in rock and roll bands out of college. The manager, Rick Springfield, was our manager. We recorded out of Sound City in Los Angeles, a very famous recording studio in Los Angeles. And one of the former managers of The Doors was our manager for a while. We were very good, but not great. I actually played in a joke rock and roll band that had airplay on a show called Dr. Demento, national airplay. That was kind of a fun thing I did. But ultimately, one night, got some bad news about a family member of mine who had died young, tragic accident. And that's when I first stayed up at night and read this book that had been given to me, Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And that book has a subtitle, A Book That Changes Lives. And it really did for me. And it really got me to think life is short. I want to do something good in the world. And so I examined what motivates me the most. I should tell you that I absolutely hate bullies. I was bullied as a kid, as a lot of really good fighters in the martial arts are. That's how they got into the martial arts. And really looked at what can I do there. And I thought, who is powerless in this world? And a lot of people are. But I thought about animals, and I've always been an animal lover. And I just thought, man, we do a lot of really terrible things to animals. And so I got involved in animal welfare. And I worked on education campaigns, national campaigns, even testified to Congress for various pet protection legislation. I started Humane America Animal Foundation with some other people back in 1999. Together, we created what became adoptapet.com, the world's largest nonprofit pet adoption website, searchable database of pets in every animal shelter and SPCA and Humane Society and rescue group in the United States and Canada. Very successful. We were really a tech company. We had 9 million unique visitors a month passing through our website. Learned a lot of stuff about technology at that time. We had celebrities. We had Drew Barrymore and Alicia Silverstone on our homepage for many years. Did lots of stuff with celebrities. Had a lot of interesting experiences there. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit and flooded the city of New Orleans, thousands and thousands of animals were stranded in their homes. Their owners couldn't get back to them because they had been made homeless. And I co-led the pet rescue efforts. Super interesting stories coming out of that about leadership and a lot of crazy stuff going on at that time. I co-wrote the Total Dog Manual and the Total Cat Manuals. Those are books that are out there. And several years ago, our organization sold adoptapet.com back in 2021 for a very significant sum of money. And we are now operating for farm animal welfare and sustainable global food systems. And in that space, I deal with legislators, I deal with really interesting science and technology, cutting edge science, entrepreneurs. I have a lot of experience in the nonprofit and the for-profit space. In total, over my career, I've generated, raised, and deployed $160 million in philanthropic funding. And this has all been supported by the principles I learned in the martial arts and started as a young kid and that I've developed over all these years. And that's what I want to share. And of course, I could tell you what I could do for you, but the best thing to do is just get on the mat and share it. Show, don't tell. And so let's metaphorically get on the mat together. Thanks for listening to this. I hope that I'll be able to produce something that's very interesting for you. Give me feedback. Definitely interested in hearing what you want to hear from me, what's interesting to you. And I look forward to this journey together. Onward and upward.